Welcome back. So, today, what we're going to be talking about is the division of retirement accounts at the time of divorce. Now, specifically, what we're going to be looking at is something that you may have heard of in the divorce process, which is called a QDRO or a DRO. It's a qualified domestic relations order or a domestic relations order. I get a lot of questions about why do I need this document? What is this document's purpose? So, that's what we're going to cover today. So first thing, what is a QDRO? So a QDRO, or a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, is basically a special document that is drafted to divide a retirement account. So during your divorce, if you have retirement accounts, in many cases those retirement accounts will be divided. So let's say, for example, you have $100,000 in retirement. It might be divided in half, so your spouse gets $50,000 of that retirement account. Now, if you were to just go and, let's say, divide the retirement account yourself, like take the cash out of the account, you're going to get hit with penalties as well as taxes. Not the way to go. There's specific ways to divide retirement accounts during your divorce process, and one of those ways is a QDRO. It's a special document that basically tells your plan administrator, so the person that controls your retirement plan. So let's say, for example, your employer works with Fidelity, your plan administrator would be Fidelity, someone specifically at Fidelity who divides your account. The QDRO basically defines how the account should be split. So let's say spouse number one, as I said, has $100,000 in their retirement account, and $50,000 of that is going to go to their spouse. The QDRO is telling the plan administrator, take the 401k that I have right now in spouse number one's name, and then create a new account in spouse number two's name and transfer $50,000 or half of the account into the new account in spouse number two's name. It'll also give information about if there's survivor beneficiaries attached to the account or any other details that are attached to that retirement account. The QDRO basically tells the plan administrator, how do I divide it? Now, when do you need a QDRO? Now, one thing I'll point out, I'm saying QDRO, but there are alternatives to a QDRO based on the type of account. A QDRO is used for what is called a qualified account, where a DRO, just a domestic relations order, is used for a non-qualified account. And there's other things like a COAP, a COAP, which is going to be used for things that are more like federal retirement accounts. So your QDRO specialist will be able to tell you what type of document you need, but generally speaking, we're just covering what is a QDRO or the concept of something like a QDRO today. So when do you need one? I like to tell my clients the simplest way to know if you need a QDRO is, does your account start with a 4 or is it a pension? So the first type of account that is needed to be divided by a QDRO or a similar document is what's called a defined contributions account. Defined contributions is usually the account that you get from your employer. So that would be a 401k, 403b, 401a, hence if it starts with a 4. And those accounts are defined contributions. You know how much you're contributing to them each month. The other type of account is a defined benefits plan. That's a pension. While pensions are rarely given out by employers now, they are still very common in education as well as things like first responders. So police officers, firefighters, and some companies do still offer a pension. A pension is a defined benefit because you're contributing to it based on how long you're with your employer and what your income is at your employer. And then ultimately, when you retire, it's going to be a defined benefit or amount that you receive every month. Both of those types of accounts, if they fall in those categories, need a QDRO or a similar document. There's other unique assets that might require a QDRO as well. So for example, an annuity may require a QDRO. It's really going to depend on the details of the plan, so the retirement plan, annuity plan, to know if it's going to need a QDRO or not. Ultimately, the only retirement accounts that don't typically need a QDRO are IRAs. IRAs can usually be divided just with the documents that you have from your divorce, like your settlement decree or your consent decree, that final document that you got. Typically, your attorney can include language in it that is going to divide your account properly. So instead of needing additional documentation, you simply can take your settlement agreement or decree, give it to the plan administrator for your IRA, and they'll divide your IRA accordingly. Now, it's really important that you're using a QDRO specialist to complete your QDRO. That might be an attorney or someone that offers that service specifically. Why is because you typically only have one chance to divide your retirement. It's not something where you mess it up the first time, you can fix it later. You usually need to do it all in one shot. So you want to make sure that you're doing it as properly as possible the first time around. You also want to make sure that you're doing your QDRO in collaboration with finalizing your divorce or within the 60-day period after your divorce. The longer you wait, the more complexity can be added to the situation. As an awful example, but something that happened, I had clients years ago who waited to file their QDRO to divide their retirement. And in the meantime, by waiting, which was over a year, one of the spouses passed away. What happened was it created chaos because technically now that retirement account is being rolled into that person's will or trust, the whole thing, where a good portion of it was supposed to go to that person's spouse. So you don't want there to be any complications. The divorce can be finalized without the QDROs being finalized. It can be a step that happens after the divorce, but it can also be something that happens during that period where you're finalizing your divorce, as long as you have final agreements. So what I commonly do with my clients is when they have a signed decree, at that point, that is when we'll send it over to the QDRO specialist to start drafting. Now, the divorce could be finalized within a short period of time from then, but what we're doing is we're just starting the clock. You've signed it, we're waiting for the judge to sign, and in the meantime, get the QDROs going. The QDRO specialist will draft and file your QDRO and then handle where it needs to be sent to your plan administrator so that process is handled. Now, QDRO specialists could do an hourly rate or they could do a flat fee, but it's helpful to consult with two different ones and see, okay, what is the cost generally going to look like so that you can have the best cost savings as possible. Last important thing to note is you typically need a QDRO for each individual account that you're dividing. So if, for example, you have 3 401ks, you usually need 3 QDROs if you're dividing every single one. So just to be cognizant of that, it's not like a one QDRO meets all requirements. It's for each individual account. You typically need a different QDRO. So I hope that information is helpful. It's a really common question that I get because it seems like an additional process that needs to be completed, and it is, and it's a really important step. Your divorce professional should guide you in understanding what that step is and what professional they typically refer to. For example, I have a QDRO specialist that I love. I refer all my clients to him. He does a great job for them. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you're interested in getting more information, there's also links below to Couple Solutions Center, the website, as well as to schedule a complimentary consultation. Until next time, I will see you next week, and I hope you have a wonderful week in the meantime. Bye.